We're being joined today by Mr. Raymond Cassar, one of the Detroit area's premier criminal defense attorneys. Thanks for joining us today, Mr. Cassar.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Mr. Cassar, in these challenging times, many people are reaching a point of frustration or even anger. As a result, we seem to be seeing an increase in incidents of domestic violence. Is this a growing issue?
It absolutely is. As we know that the divorce rate throughout the United States is almost 1 in 2 marriages are ending in divorce. And unfortunately, as we see that rate go higher and higher, we see that domestic violence is also going higher and higher.
Wow. If a person is a victim of any type of domestic abuse or assault, they should immediately get help by calling the National Domestic Abuse Hotline. That number is 1-800-799-SAFE. But what should the person who is accused of committing domestic violence do?
Well, the first thing that a person who's accused of committing this type of crime, the best thing you can do is to contact a lawyer that's familiar with domestic violence cases and understands what goes into not only the court proceedings, but what goes through the mental and emotional strains between the two parties. Knowing a little bit of psychology will help that person represent the individual in the courtroom.
It seems like it would be easy for an alleged victim to make up or exaggerate an incident. Are innocent people ever wrongly prosecuted for something that they didn't do?
Absolutely, and it happens quite frequently when there is a pending divorce or separation going on, where there's a fight or a battle over the children. A spouse can make a claim that, hey, my husband's been beating me or just beat me. She calls the police come in. That will give her, at least in her mind, some leverage when it comes to parenting time or having the right to custody of those kids. So oftentimes it is used as some sort of a leverage, and innocent people are accused.
What happens if the alleged victim changes their mind and doesn't want to press charges? Will the charges be dropped?
That's a great question. Again, it's not up to the complainant in this case, or the victim in this case, to drop the charges. The prosecution will continue through the state. The state will keep pushing this issue. Now, granted, that person has the right to speak with the prosecutor and say, look, I've changed my mind, I've changed my attitude towards this, but generally the case proceeds forward.
It sounds like the consequences of being convicted of domestic violence can be very, very serious. Can you discuss some of the penalties associated with a domestic violence conviction in Michigan?
Certainly. Domestic violence has 3 levels. First offense with no priors, you're looking at up to 93-day misdemeanor. Going to jail at all is a bad thing, and depending on the injuries that were sustained by the victim, will increase the likelihood of going to jail. A second offense, domestic violence, now carries up to 1 year in jail. It's a bad thing. You go to jail for any length of period of time, you're going to lose your job. And then finally, domestic violence, third offense, that's a felony. It's a 1 to 5 years. You're going to go away, and most likely you're going to go to a state prison system. So the penalties are very, very severe. That's why you need to get a good lawyer who's going to come in and represent you aggressively.
If a person is convicted of domestic violence in Michigan, they'll end up with a criminal record. Now, can you explain what this means and what impact a criminal record can have on a person's life?
The criminal record for domestic violence is an assaultive record. And let's face it, employers do not want to hire people that have an assault on their record. Why? Because they're worried about that person maybe affecting other employees. There is a way with a good criminal attorney to prevent or preclude this from becoming a permanent conviction. But that's why you need to talk to a lawyer. You need to talk to a lawyer that does domestic violence work and that can explain to you what your options are and what your rights are. The goal is you don't want to have a conviction on your record.
So if a person's been contacted by the police or a detective, if they believe that they're under investigation for domestic violence, what should they do?
Most important thing to do is to contact an attorney first. That is by far the critical thing. Many people want to tell their side of the story to the police officers thinking that they can explain it away. They can explain why this is a mistake, it's just a misunderstanding between that person and his spouse. But the bottom line is you can't explain it away. The statements you make to that officer are going to be permanent. They're going to be used against you. The best thing you can do is get an attorney involved. Call a criminal attorney. Talk to him first so that he can give you guidance as to what to say or what not to say to the police officers.
So if the detective or police officer says they'll take it easy if the accused person cooperates, should the person being accused just make it easier and admit the crime or plead guilty?
And that's typically the tactic that police officers will use. They will say, hey, listen, you know what, this is probably just a misunderstanding. We just want to work it out, figure out what happened here. They're going to be nice to you. They have to be nice to you in order to get you to make statements saying, yes, I was wrong, I got a little out of hand, I was drinking that night, whatever the case may be. Again, though, the most important thing is to not say anything. You have the absolute right to remain silent. The safest thing you can do is say, I want to speak with a lawyer.
Okay, so you're saying a person should absolutely always enter a plea of not guilty and not make any further statements until they have a lawyer. What about asking for a court-appointed lawyer?
Well, the upside to having a court-appointed attorney is very inexpensive. The repayment for that court-appointed attorney is going to be very, very minimal. The downside to having a court-appointed attorney is they don't have the experience that someone who's been doing this for many, many years will. The court-appointed attorney only has a certain amount of time that he can spend on each case. So he's not going to give you that care and that confidence that you're looking for. It really makes sense to go to family or friends, see if you can borrow some resources, some funds to hire a really good criminal attorney. It is your life on the line.
It sounds like the safest option for someone being charged with domestic violence is to immediately discuss their situation with a criminal defense attorney who's experienced in these cases like you. Now, is there anything important that we've missed here that you'd like to say to our viewers who would like more information about domestic violence and the law in Michigan?
Well, I'd like to tell the viewers that, my firm has been doing this for over 30 years. And this is all we do. And the advantage they have in working with our firm is it is a criminal defense firm. It's not a sole practitioner. It's not a one-man show. It's a team of attorneys, and this is all we do. The advantage they have is we love what we do, and that gives us an advantage every time we go into the courtroom. We're happy to talk to anybody. If you're charged or accused of domestic violence, please feel free to give us a call. We're happy to get you in the right direction and help you sleep at night.
Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Cassar.
It was my pleasure.